In Scotland, there are legends about deadly and terrifying beasts known as the Kelpie. These creatures, who can transform themselves into various forms, were greatly feared centuries ago, and there are still alleged rare encounters of the Kelpie going on to this very day. Now, the name Kelpie basically means water horse. It is said that this water horse spends most of its time lurking in the shallow waters around the Scottish lochs, waiting patiently for its prey. And according to legend, most of its human victims would not survive these attacks. But for the lucky ones that did manage to escape with their lives, they let everybody know that these monsters do exist. And of course, that created a lot of fear and hysteria amongst the Scottish people. Now, these survivors would say that while they were walking close to the loch, they saw a rather large horse coming out of the water, and this horse started to attack them. And while they were being attacked, they felt as if this creature had some sort of power over them, like it had the power to seduce them and make them feel like they were supposed to just give themselves up and die. But regardless of this creature's power over them, some of these very unlucky people, or very lucky people, did manage to escape, and the legend of the Kelpie was born. Now, the people believed that once this creature started to become known and greatly feared throughout the land, it was somehow aware of this, so it changed its form from a horse to a beautiful woman. And instead of coming out of the water, just scaring the crap out of its victims, it would now call to them, very similar to that of a siren. And when they would approach or get close enough to this beautiful woman who was standing in the shallow water, it would attack them and drag these poor souls to their deaths. Now, it was believed that these paranormal entities, or paranormal entity, only came out during dusk or nighttime, and that they lived in any Scottish water source, such as a river or a lake. But a paranormal researcher, Roland Watson, uncovered something very interesting. As he was investigating these ancient cases, he found out that pretty much every single one of these encounters came from Loch Ness. And for those that don't know, but I'm sure pretty much everybody does, is that Loch Ness is home to the most famous lake monster in the world, the Loch Ness Monster. So I find this extremely interesting, because not only has there been sightings of an unknown creature in Loch Ness recently, but also some very famous ones over the past centuries. And now we know that even the ancient Scottish people have legends about an unknown creature living within Loch Ness. So the question is, could the Kelpie and the Loch Ness Monster be one and the same? And many believe so. Now, most of these ancient sightings did happen in the water, but there were a few accounts where they did happen on land. So this creature was not just limited to the water, but maybe Loch Ness is just where it lived. Of course, that is if they exist. One very interesting encounter happened in 1934 by a man named Arthur Grant. While Arthur was riding his motorcycle close to Loch Ness, he claims that he almost hit a creature that looked exactly like the Loch Ness Monster, and it was walking across the road towards a lake. And Grant stated that he was able to get a very good look at it before it swam away. Now, of course, most people thought that Grant was just making up stories, but he was very insistent on letting people know that this creature did exist, and he spent most of his life trying to get proof. Making many wonder, did Grant actually come face to face with the Loch Ness Monster? Now, we know that this man is not the only one to have claimed to have seen this creature, but this is one of the few sightings that I do know about that actually happened on land, but it was still very close to Loch Ness. And another thing that kind of stood out to me is that the Loch Ness Monster could kind of look like a horse, especially if someone was far away and it was dark. And if they saw it on the land, then walk into the water, that could be the reason for the name Kelpie, which, like I said, means water horse. So maybe the legend of the Kelpie is nothing more than ancient Loch Ness Monster sightings, and over time the Kelpie got a bad name for itself by people just making up scary stories. Now, whatever the case may be, this ancient legend, together with the modern sightings, makes me believe that there might just be some sort of animal still unknown to science that lives in the highlands of good old Scotland. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.